I know you've been probably following a lot of different prospects. Who's maybe your favorite prospects in this draft?
Yeah, so I'll name two. One guy on offense, one guy on defense, and I'll categorize them as my guys, right? Not necessarily guys in the top 50, but guys whose tape I really enjoyed. The first one, RJ Harvey, the running back from UCF. I'm a huge fan of RJ Harvey. I loved Bucky Irving in last year's class. He had a phenomenal rookie season with the Buccaneers, and I feel like RJ Harvey is this year's version of a Bucky Irving. And the reason why is because we've got some metrics at PFF that really try to separate running backs from the offensive line in front of them, right? That's always the toughest conversation. Oh, is a running back good because he's got a good offensive line in front of him? Or is he really worth the talent of being picked with a day two selection or wherever it is? And RJ Harvey, those two metrics, he grades very high in missed tackles forced per attempt, which can be independent whether your offensive line is good or not. You could force a missed tackle in the backfield, at the line of scrimmage, at the second level, depending on how the blocking does for you. And then yards after contact per attempt. Same thing. You get hit with contact in the backfield, you get hit at the line of scrimmage, you get hit at the second level. But how much you are getting after that is, again, a sign of individual ability outside of your offensive line. RJ Harvey, excellent and above the 80th percentile in both of those categories over the last 2 years. And then my other one on the defensive line, I'll go with Tennessee defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott. He's just one of my favorite prospects in this class because they pretty much just had him do one thing this year, and he did it in an elite level. He was an elite pass rusher. That is what they asked him to do. He had less than 100 run defense snaps all year. So they just didn't ask him to be in there on run defense. But when it came to pass rushing from a three technique defensive tackle spot, the first step explosiveness was incredible. He had a great bull rush to him. Speed to power was excellent. The hands, violent and fast for pass rush moves. He could stack and shed offensive linemen almost at will. 18.7% pass rush win percentage. Anything in the high teens and early 20s is excellent. That's some of the best numbers that you'll find. So he's right there in that category. So those are two guys who I think are going outside of the top 50 in this draft, but ones that I would label my guys for ones that I really like.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. You're talking ball, man. You're talking ball. I love it. Funny enough, you mentioned Bucky Irving, former Gopher. He started his college career at Minnesota.
That he did. That he
Yeah,
did.
he went on to do great things. So that's awesome. If you're comparing someone to Bucky, that's a big time deal. Okay, so got some of your draft crushes out of the way. Who do you like for the Vikings? They only have 4 picks this year, so they kind of have to be really strategic at what they do to try to help build this team. So who do you like for them?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different directions that they could go. You could still, even though I love the additions that they made to both of the trenches, the interior offensive and defensive line, you still could potentially look for a guard. If a guy like a Tyler Booker or a Gray Zabel or a Donovan Jackson is available there for you, that number 24, maybe that is enticing enough to pick them there because you mentioned they only have 4 picks. They're going to really have to love the prospect that's on the board at number 24 for them not to trade down. And it's not a big trade down draft. I think that the Vikings are really hoping that the quarterback slide, like whether it is Shador or Jackson Dart or Jalen Milrow or whoever, I think they're really hoping that the most quarterbacks are still on the board by the time they get there so they can entice one of those teams at the top of the second round to trade up so they can get some more picks. So it's got to be somebody that they love, but those are some interior offensive linemen I think about for them. Interior defensive line as well. Again, I like Javon Hargrave. I like John Allen. I like the additions there, but if a Kenneth Grant from Michigan makes it to you as a defensive tackle, Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, Derek Harmon from Oregon, right? Those three guys continually come to my mind as maybe those guys are enticing enough to stick at number 24 and to draft them. And then the final category I would say is cornerback. This is the one that they obviously have some uncertainty around. A lot of guys are going to have to step up, losing a lot of the guys that were heavily in their rotation last year. They probably like the guys that they have on their roster. I'm just not so sure one of the top tier corners is going to make it to them. Is a Will Johnson or a Jade Barron going to make it to them at 24? It feels like they're going to get picked a little bit earlier. And then do you want like the next corner in line, like is a Benjamin Morrison or a Trey Amos or maybe a Maxwell Harrison? Like, are those guys worth 24 for you. I think the ultimate wild card is Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Just looking at this safety room and thinking long term, Harrison Smith comes back for another year, but you need something a little bit further after that. So to me, those are the players that I think about. You got to love one of them to stick at 24, but perhaps one of those names ends up being somebody they like enough.
Awesome. You mentioned some of the offseason acquisitions. They did get Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. Kind of going against some of what they've done in the past, Kwesi has kind of taken risks on guys who, teams may have declined that fifth-year option on. And he's like, well, they were first-round picks. Let's see what we can get from them. This time around, he's getting guys who are north of 30. And so, I think it might be a little bit more of a tough situation to say, oh, yeah, just draft best player available because they did so much in free agency. But these are older players and also some players with injury history. So do you feel like they probably should stand pat at 24 and make a pick?
Yeah, I think that that's a great call by you as sort of the reasons why they might end up doing that. And I think when you look at the Vikings specifically, for example, people talk about I like Darius Alexander a lot, the defensive tackle from Toledo. When we talk about interior defensive line being a need for the Vikings, people go, okay, well, what about Darius Alexander? I'd push back on them for that for the exact reason that you brought up. They've got veteran guys there. I think what they would love to do instead is take a chance on one of these guys who is a little bit younger and say, okay, well, you might be 20, 21 years old, but halfway through your rookie contract is really when we would probably need you to become a starter. And then at that point, you're still only 22, 23 years old. And then when that contract is up, you're only 24, 25. You've still got plenty left in the tank. And so I think that free agency is great for picking up hints, whether it's areas that they're going to attack in the draft or styles or preferences of players with age or ceiling or high floor, things like that. And I think it's a really good call up by you with bringing in some veteran presence. It doesn't totally take these positions off the table, but I think it does say, hey, if you're going to draft one of these guys, they're probably going to draft somebody who is on the younger side. Somebody like Walter Nolan, I think would be perfect for this team because he's going to be 21 years old on draft night during his rookie season. So that's an excellent idea for them there. I think Kenneth Grant, the same thing. I think he's about 21, 22 years old. So a younger player. It's just something to keep in mind for them at 24.
You mentioned cornerbacks. So the Vikings have kind of just piecemealed cornerbacks together in the time that Kevin O'Connell has been there. And last year you kind of saw their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, make the most out of the guys that they have. And now they bring in guys like Isaiah Rodgers. They took a chance on Jeff Okudah. So some people would say, okay, maybe they are good at the cornerback position. They re-signed Byron Murphy to a big-time contract. Do you feel like cornerback is something that they should address? And if so, do you like the depth at cornerback? If they maybe don't take one early, maybe they can get a good one in the third round, fourth round?
I do think that they can. It gets risky anytime that you're sitting there at 24 and you know that you don't pick again until 97, right? That's just a lot of picks that you have to wait and watch a lot of great players go off the board. I absolutely think that corner should be up there. And if we're talking about pure need, I would say the corner is the biggest pure need that they have on the team, depending on how you look at safety as well. Something in the secondary, I would tell you, is actually their biggest pure need. Now, is that player going to line up? Again, if a Will Johnson makes it to you, if a Jahdae Barron makes it to you, maybe they do think that highly of, say, a Maxwell Harrison. I think that you could think about that there, but there are plenty of corners for day three that you could think about there. Kobe Bryant or Mello Dotson, the two duos from Kansas, Noel Williams from Cal, Justin Wally, somebody who is a local guy from Minnesota. Like, you start thinking about those guys around that third, fourth round range. And I think that there are plenty of corners that you could convince yourself about, but you also have to think, no team in the NFL thinks that they're good at corner. Everybody wants to make sure their corner room is as talented and as deep as possible. So if you get all the way to 97, almost to the end of the top 100 there, you've really got to feel good about a gem that you have at corner that you're picking there, because the good ones, they go and they go pretty quickly. So if they need a corner, again, that's just more evidence to say, I think they'd love to trade down top of the second round, maybe hit corner top of the second round, hit the interior offensive and defensive lines with those later picks, 97, and then whatever extra one they accumulate for trading back. I think that's probably a strategy they would love to deploy.
So Kwesi, the Vikings GM, he has a penchant for making deals, and we saw this on display his very first draft. He passed on guys like Kyle Hamilton, Jameson Williams, traded back to the end of the first round to draft Lewis Seen. Then he got the extra pick, and he picked Andrew Booth in the draft as well. Both of those guys no longer on the roster after only 3 years. And so you look at the trade down that you were talking about. Do you feel like there's value if they were to do that? Because I think the idea of the Vikings trading down probably makes fans a little bit nervous considering what happened in Kwesi's first go around.
Yeah, I think that anytime you have a general manager that comes from an analytics background, they're going to be willing to wheel and deal, because there's a lot of general managers who aren't really willing to do that. And I think that the ones who are much more open to it, or I would say aggressive to moving, can often be the ones that have that advantage. You look at last year. Yeah, look at what they did there. They traded up twice, and they got, I think, two players that they're very, very excited about. And so in previous years, you mentioned they've traded back because analytically speaking, in a vacuum, we at PFF often say, hey, it's much better to trade back than to trade up. You would rather have more darts to throw at the dartboard, as the analogy goes, than you would players that you're trading up for, unless you think that they are absolutely the perfect fit for you. So I think they'd love to trade back. I think they're eyeing that early part of the second round, but it all just depends who's there. Now, I think that the value for corner, for interior offensive line, and interior defensive line is excellent for them. If they're trading back out of the first round and getting into the early part of the second round, I think it could be perfect. The question just is, who is somebody trading up for? If it's a quarterback, then I think you could get that interest. But outside of a quarterback, I don't know if there's going to be that one player that one team goes, yeah, we have to move up. We have to come away with this guy. That's just not really this draft. So it'll be interesting to see what Kwesi's able to do, if he does anything at all with movement there at 24.
Okay, last one from me. In your heart of hearts, what do you see the Vikings doing in round one?
I do see them trading back. I think that they are going to find a way to make it happen. And if they don't trade back, I do feel as though secondary is the spot where I feel that they could go the most, because secondary, it's ripe. Now, some of those interior offensive linemen might not be available for you. Those interior defensive linemen that you want, the younger guys, maybe they don't make it to you at 24, but Malachi Starks, Nicky Manwari, Xavier Watts, Kevin Winston Jr., all those guys from the safety position, I think it would be excellent for them. I mentioned some of the corners already that I think would really fit for them. I think Kwesi finds a way to get it done. I just don't think that he is going to be comfortable picking at 24 and then not picking again until 97. I think if I had to make a bet, I would be saying that they trade down somewhere, end of the first round or early part of the second round.
Trevor, thanks so much for taking the time. Busy draft week for you. Appreciate you carving out a little bit for us. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you having me, Reggie. Anytime.